All right. So I think we're ready to start.
All right. So can you just pull that up?
Oh, yeah. All right. We're going to share our screen here. And here we go. You're just up there. Do you want me to run it for you? Okay. But it's not on the computer. It's just going to be up there. So you can just take this. I'm doing new things and I'm causing problems.
All right. Well, good morning. So glad you all could make it this morning. The first thing we're going to do is go through a little bit of an update on the tax web. We now have all of our counties on the tax web, the new updated CPT tax web. We've done a lot of updates along the line. And so we're just going to update you all on the things we've done. And there's a couple questions that were lingering on the appraisal summary, which I know that not all of you do, but we'll just quickly go through those questions somewhere along the line here. So today I'm just going to hop into Todd County. They were the lucky winner today. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is the searches. And these aren't new searches, but a lot of our counties have been questioning the name search. And as you know, even before that, in order to pay your parcels online, you would have to go into each one and add them to the shopping cart. And like for me, that's not a problem. I have one. So, but for people that own property, properties, that becomes kind of harder. And also the counties questioning the name search, because if you can use the name search, it's not so bad. You can put your name in and get to the parcels and they're probably all lined up and you just go in and out. But if you don't have the name search, this became difficult. And one of our counties pointed out that fact to us. And so we brainstormed here and came up with something new. But right now, so how do I type?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Call.
I am going to actually use the name search for just this piece. Okay, so here we go. We have a lot of people lined up here, but we're going to just go into someone with a lot of property. And this is what we have added. On our dashboard, we added a new tile called the related parcels tile. And what this does is it found the taxpayer here on Douglas and Karen, number 758, I think it says, and it went out and it got all of their parcels lined up here. And what you can do here is you can just add them all to the cart one time if you wish. Um, we'll do that, but first we'll go through just a little bit about the new updated CPT tax web. So on our parcel information, we providing you display values. So we have the 25, 26 information. We in our personal information, put the most current information, which would be from your current tax files on the auditor side. If you do not have values on the web, and there's only a handful of you left that don't have values on the well, don't do values to our tax web, 4 counties to be exact, then we will need to display the tax record, which was the 24-25. And it's just pretty standard what we display. Information about the parcel. Anytime there's a tile, you can go over, and 2 ways. You can just go to details and see it a little larger, little more information, or you can always go to a full screen and see the information. So let's go back to the dashboard and just hop through the tiles quick. So there's tax information that gives you the years back. Like I said, you can just see it a little larger that way. Then we have our new tile, which is the related parcels. Then we go down to the value information, and I just want to make one comment that your county, of course, you, the assessors and auditors have to agree, but your tiles can be displayed in any order you wish. We just kind of had a standard order. If you at your county decide, no, we don't want this tax information here, we want, oh, I don't know, what would you maybe put there? The tax billing. Maybe you say, no, we want the tax billing up here right next to the related parcels. You can do that. You just have to let us know. And like I said, it has to be an agreement per county. But anyway, so then we have the value information. We have this happens to be a total record, so we know that there's more than one record, which we can go and why won't you go down? Why won't that do that? Will this help? No.
Oh, just make a note, send it to programming. Works with me. I can see the red button in the bottom left there. I wonder if you go down like below it, will it just click?
That's
I wonder
nice.
if it's a zoom. Go on the top 3 buttons, so the top 3 dots, top right 3 dots. And let's see, am I zoomed in? No, I'm at 100%. Never mind.
All right. Well, we'll just hop over to the value info and see it that way, hopefully. So here we can see our detail records, and then we can just go through them. And I'm not going to do this, but this would be where your value notices are at. And currently we have the TNT sitting there. We always did, but we're considering moving those out of there as well. Okay, so back to our dashboard. And we also have special assessments. We have our tax billing, which this would be where you would pay taxes. And then we have the aerial photo, and we have an appraisal summary, which we'll talk about later. I believe 10 or 11 of you do display the appraisal summary. You must be using our CAMA package to do this, but if you're everyone uses LandCalc, of course, now because of Prism, but if you use our CAMA LandCalc package, we can get the appraisal summary for you. And then the sales information, which we've done work on our sales information to make that a little more maybe agreeable as far as it displays, how it displays. Okay, so let's go down to tax billing, and we see that we have 239. So if we go in here, we have our 239 sitting here, but we had related parcels. So let's go back, and we're not going to clear our shopping cart. on your related parcels tile, you can add one at a time. You can put it in, can take it out. That's what that means. You can also do that in the shopping cart. Or we can just add them all. And you can keep doing that. It's not going to add them twice. So let's go look at our shopping cart here. And you see we have all of these sitting in here with a total of 24 something, 01, I think it is. 51. All right. And now you'd be ready. You'd be ready. It provided you want to pay all of them. If you say, well, I'm going to pay them all, but I'm not paying this one. Oh, well, all right. Well, now we're not paying that one. Or you can say, oh, well, you know, maybe I should have paid that one. And you can go back and you can pick it up here because it will tell you that, oh, there's one left that you didn't pay. Oh, okay. I guess I'll pay it then. Okay, whatever. Just going, but you get the idea. So that is one of the newest things we've added. I think what we'll do now is move on to the assessment summary or appraisal summary, excuse me. So maybe this won't get all answered today, but we have been asked a few questions and they're mainly on wording. One of them isn't, but so one of the things we were asked, and this you may not, you may want to think about. We were asked to change the appraisal summary to say assessment summary. This would have to be a group decision because that's what our tile is named. That's what we're calling it. So this one is kind of a big question, I would say. So please think about that and maybe reach out to us like after the meeting and decide what you think of that. The other thing we were asked is, let me just see here. So we were asked about the legal description, if we want to change that to property description. I don't know how you would feel about that. This is just an ask, but because over here, in the parcel information, we actually just call it legal. We don't call it property description, we just call it legal. And over here, we call it legal description. I don't know if you want to, this is up to you. We'll ask this also, but I'm thinking maybe you would want to keep this more consistent with what the parcel is saying. I mean, if we're going to say legal here, I would think maybe you'd want to use the same wording here. But we'll ask. And the last thing I think is on property address. And this does get a little, because this has no property address. So it's like, well, why are we saying property address? However, if you had one, it would be sitting there. This county wanted us to just remove the school district and township, and then there would be nothing there if there wasn't a property address. I don't know. It's a question. Okay, and the last thing that I'm going to mention on the appraisal summary is when you go into details, where are we? Right here.
Carl L was asking if you could send out a survey on the items that you're requesting.
Yes, that's what we'll do, for sure. We will do that. So let's go back to the dashboard. And we'll go down here. And do this. So what was asked by a county was if we would care to expand this to include your net rate and your value by line item. So just throwing that out there, and we'll include that in our survey because that would be, I mean, that would be quite a change. I don't know if you all care to by line item. I mean, this is just a piece of land, but when you get to a house, you would have quite a few line items, and it would show each particular thing that you had, each house breakdown, and it would show your net rate and your amount. That's up to you how you wish to deal with the public on that information. Okay, so I'll just call that good for this piece. And let's see, what else have we done? The other thing that we have worked on is, and this is per county as well, you can show more than 2 years of valuation notices, provided you've saved your data. And also tax statements, you can show also more than 2 years now. That was a change we just rolled out about a week ago. Let's go back to the shopping cart. One thing I want to point out is that we've added help to the shopping cart. I know this is a public facing tax web, but when you get to the shopping cart, it can get a little, I don't know, tricky.
Confusing.
So we wanted to make sure that you could see some information on how to navigate that. And thanks to our tax support team for doing that for us. Okay, now how do I get back?
That's just an extra tab.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to the search and I'll just point out a couple more things and then we will move on. Okay, so we were asked if there's a way that you can see a parcel has delinquent taxes, like without searching for it. You can find it here. It's here. I think it's either here. I would be wrong. Don't even know where my stuff is. You can find it. It's just that it's not as apparent. So what we did is we just put on a message, and this was actually asked for by a county and a realtor. So, I mean, because they want to know right away if a property has delinquent taxes on it. So we added that. The other thing that we worked on, if we go back, So you know how the searches and the results list, you can always from right here say, oh, I want to just go back here. And this isn't very apparent, but on the old tax web, you could see if there was, if you had viewed a parcel because it grayed out sort of. So we were asked if we would do that as well. And what we did is we bolded it. So let's go back and just do a different search. Oh, well, so don't I know my parcel? I'm not in the name field, am I, Susie?
No, we're good this time. There we go.
Okay, so I'm looking for 12,200, which is right here. Okay, so what I wanted to point out here is on the sales, we did a lot of work since we first put it out to try and separate these sales so you can really see that we're talking about a separate sale. And as well, if we go back to the results list, this, and you see that this parcel is bolded, and the reason there's 2 years here is because on the old tax web, there was always 2 records as long as you did values. There was the tax record and the value record. So when we did our new tax web, we just have one line item unless there was a name change. And then we would have the 2025 with the name it was under when the tax statement was sent, and we would have the 2026 with the newest name on it, which would make sense because we saw there was a sale. And you see these are bolded. Okay, so is there anything in the chat at all? Okay. I'll just call that good. We are going to send out those questions on the appraisal summary. Like I mentioned, if you saw something you like about the appraisal summary and you do our CAMA land calc, we'd always be happy to get that up and going for you. You're also at liberty to have us bring your sketches across too, if you would decide you want to display your sketches as well on the appraisal summary. All right, so if I just, I'm just gonna talk a few minutes and then our tax support team is gonna take over. We sent a tax release out last week. A lot of it had to do with your office. So, the first thing is we added a new assessment code, and I'm just going to touch on that because Susie is going to talk about that in greater detail. But for a long time, we had rolled the personal property structure on leased land right into the 230, and we didn't have 2 codes. So we've done a lot of work on assessed property, and we ended up creating a 430 so that you could use that for your structure on leased land. We also added it at this point to the mini, down in the section where we report the personal property, because you don't report that technically on the mini. And then we pulled it into the assessor's abstract as well. The next thing is we ran across an issue, and we actually discovered this when we were testing out our eCAMA land calc, that if you, and a lot of you have this scenario, that if you have do your CAMA files, so you have your current and you've created your your New Year CAMA files, but you only have one set of tax files. What was happening is if you went in and inactivated on the tax side, either through partial maintenance or value maintenance, if you inactivated a record, it is supposed to keep your land calc files in sync. And it was not. It was only updating your New Year land calc files and leaving, so then there was a mismatch between your current year and your New Year land calc files. And so we fixed it both in valuation maintenance and in parcel maintenance as well. When we loaded this release, we wrote a program that would bring them all back into sync. In our tax MP inquiry, there was a little issue, and this was very specific. You had to have a 0 MP, you had to have ag, and you had to have more than one value record. But our ag homestead field was not displaying properly. So that was fixed. So about the only tax law that we know of that's going to affect us is the protected official that the state has now enacted, which the federal government enacted Daniel's law like 2 years ago, I believe, and we did programming for that. We think that we're going to be probably pretty well okay. But one thing that was asked of us is in your regular tax inquiry, if you have someone that's designated as a protected official, could you tell us that so that we know in our offices not to give out this information? And so that change was made to your inquiry screens. If you have a protected official, it will show you right in your inquiry screen that this is that person. Also in our tax inquiry, and this was in previous year, and this has been an issue for a long time, but someone noticed that our vet exclusion was being put into the exempt field versus the exclusion field. And we fixed that. And this is dealing with late notices, which you all wouldn't have anything to do with those. So that went out on the release. Other releases coming, other programming that will be done, but that is all I have. And there's nothing in the chat, right? Parker? Okay, then I am going to turn this over.
Well, you're still gonna be pretty involved. But before we're gonna, the main section of what we'll talk about today is the assessment codes. But before we do that, there were a couple other items that Gwen brought up that had come up this tax season, and just we wanted to get everyone on the same page. The first one is with the social security number screen in valuation maintenance. So if we go into valuation maintenance and we do the social security, oops, I hit enter. Try again. We do the social security number screen. This occupant address was being used as a notes field. And we just wanted to explain what this occupant address field is for. If you have a social security number in here and a name, we send it to the state in the homestead file with the address for the taxpayer of this parcel. If this is not the taxpayer and that address is not the correct address, then you would need to put an occupant address in here, and we replace the taxpayer address with this occupant address in the homestead file. So it was causing problems in the homestead file because we were not sending addresses, because we were sending this information and it was a note. So just as a heads up to everybody for like when you need to use this and where it goes, that is the purpose of this field.
It is if that address sitting up on top isn't the address of the person. And what we It's relatives, basically.
Mm-hmm. So if this person doesn't match this address, you should put a different address in here. If this person matches this address, you're good to go. This needs to be left blank, so that we're not overwriting that information.
Right, because if we find anything in that occupant address, we're gonna use that, assuming you've overridden this for that particular reason.
So that was just a note. And then the other note that has come up since we are allowing people to make New Year files earlier is that, if you, once you make your New Year tax file, your 2026-27 tax file, you will not be able to update your 2025-26 valuation notices anymore. Once you make your New Year tax file, your valuation notices are set the way they are. They're not going to be able to change.
Michelle asks if they're able to run a report for occupant address.
I'm sure in our social security. We'll look into that.
Okay.
I think on the social security options, we would print that.
Then get back to her.
Yep. We'll send that in the notes for this training. Thank you. Okay, those were the only two notes. After that, we wanted to jump into talk about assessment codes. So like Gwen said, we added that 430 assessment code because we worked with Jesse at State Assessed, and he actually started this document, and then we went back and forth to make sure it was giving the correct information. And I sent out two options, or I made two options that we sent out. One that lists in state assessed order. So if you're looking at your state assessed lists and you want to be able to easily reference which assessment code, you can do that. And another that lists in our CPT assessment code order. Feel free to keep and use whichever one. Is the same data. It's just what order they're listing in. So we wanted to talk today about the bolded lines. This 430 is our new one. You're going to want to go and move things to the 430. That's already loaded. That was loaded with our release last week. But the big lines we wanted to talk about, and feel free to either chat or unmute yourself and chime in, is that this 428 and 454 are supposed to be all countywide. There's no option that's not countywide, kind of like the new 421. So let me back up. Back in January, we sent out emails about 421 and 422. Those were the kind of assessment codes the state made last summer, but they didn't communicate clearly enough to us until the fall. So they were actually supposed to be done already. But if you missed these less than 69 kilovolts, greater than or equal to 69 kilovolts, you're going to want to go through your files and make those 421s and 422s. 422s are typically charged at taxed at a local rate, meaning they would be in your real estate files, unless they're in an unorganized township. Most of you don't have unorganized townships. If you have them, you know. 421s are always all countywide, which means they need to be in your transmission distribution line subsystem. That's the only way we get countywide tax rates. So what we learned in communicating with State Assessed is that 454s and 428s are supposed to be all countywide, meaning all of your electric distribution lines and all of your electric transmission 1 to 200 kilovolts should be in your transmission distribution line subsystem. And I don't know if we have any counties that are doing that, but that's what the state is saying. The hiccup that we have is that these 454s can be in a city or they can be in a township. And because they want us to have different PRISM subtypes. In order for us to do that, what we need you to do is if you have a electric distribution line that's part in a city, part in a township, we need you to work with State Assessed to split that into two parcels and put one parcel in a city and one parcel in a township. And then when we submit Prism, we know which of your city townships are cities and which are townships, and we will split that out for Prism. Is that clear as mud? Does anyone have any questions or updates?
Michelle had one more note on that occupant address,
Oh, yeah.
just that they'd like to have parcels that are only parcels that have information in the occupant address.
They'd like a listing that only lists parcels that have occupant addresses.
I believe that's what that.
Mhm. We'll see what we can do. Okay. So what we need you to know is that you're gonna have to move your 454s and your 428s into your transmission distribution lines. In order to do that, we are gonna have to move your 454s and your 428s. If you email us a list of the parcels that you need moved into transmission distribution, we will move them in there, and then you can go check to make sure they're in there. So we sent out this document. This is your homework document. These are the assessment codes that we're retiring. And so if anyone has state assessed, holler now or follow up later, but I'm moving into a different mode. These are the assessment codes that we're retiring. And they're, again, this is kind of what started the conversation with state assessed, because a lot of them are state assessed. But we used to have one code that was for under the $150,000 preferential rate and one that was for over. Well, now you could use only the under, and we would, check to see and only give them one. So we're removing the duplicate codes because we're seeing that trying to do it both ways is sometimes causing some issues. So what we need you to do is go in and run listings to find all of these codes. Go in and change them to these highlighted codes. The highlighted codes are the ones that we're keeping. Just a note that these underlined codes, the 427s and the 444s, might be in transmission distribution lines, and those would need to be changed as well. Then the second thing so that's kind of the first thing we want you to do. The second thing we want you to do is go find your 428s and your 454s, move them to transmission lines, send us a note of what you want moved. And for the 454s, make sure you separate the parcels for if they're in a city and outside a city, and those that should be listed on the sheet you get from state assessed. So if you email us the parcels you need to be moved, we'll do that and let you know when they're moved. While you're moving them is a good time to look at your transmission distribution lines. If you're somebody who didn't do the 421s and 422s, maybe write that over here. You want to move those two while you're at it. All of your transmission lines need to be at the end of your MP group. So, we kind of have tended to recommend that your commercial parcels start at like 130, 140, something like that. So you can add stuff at the beginning if you want to, or you can add stuff at the end. If you want to start your transmission lines later, then, if they're with other parcels, make them like 180s, 190s. It's because we calculate the transmission line tax capacity after your real estate tax capacity. It calculates separately. And so if there's a transmission line that's in the middle of the MP group and it comes like before you've reached the 150 threshold, that transmission line can get some preferential rate, even if it shouldn't, because that MP group has hit the max. So the only way we are figuring that 150 preferential rate now, it's used to be based on these duplicate codes. Now we're doing it straight off of your MP groups. Each MP group will be allowed one 150 preferential rate, and then after that we'll move on. In order for us to do that, you need to have all your transmission lines at the end. And then the last thing you're going to want to do is, or one of the other things you're going to want to do is to do your state assessed structure on leased or unowned land. Send that to that 430 code. Once you have removed these and moved all of your 428s and 454s into real estate, we can load a new release that will not allow for those assessment codes, not allow for the 428s and 454s in real estate. But we need you to move them first before we load this release. So this release is what's going to allow you to run your Prism 2, and we like to be running it by the end of July. So here's like the meat of what we're talking about today is this document. That's your homework. Any questions on your homework?
You were
Okay.
told about this last winter?
Yeah, you knew it was coming, and I've had a few people who've messaged me, so I know some of you have already gone through and changed these. But for the rest of you, now is the time. If you're a crunch time person, now is the crunch. Okay.
Hey, Susie, this
Yes.
is Bonnie with Pope County.
Yeah.
Question for you. We used to have to split the structure leased land between rural area and urban area. We don't have to do that anymore. It can just be a 430 now, and it doesn't matter if it's in the city or out of the city.
So we have in the assessment codes, Bonnie, I think you're talking about in our assessment codes booklet. We have right here, structure on leased land.
Rural areas and
It's
yeah.
434, 435. So we have those, but you can see if it's highlighted in blue here, it's the state assessed code. These are not state assessed codes.
Okay.
We don't have them set up to go to the state assessed categories. If these are the categories you were using, I don't know if you'd use them for other things. The structure on leased land in rural areas is going to 2A, and then structured on leased land in residential areas is going to 4BB1. This new 430 is not either. It's going to 3A. So it's
Okay. So
this is your state assessed.
I
one.
actually was talking about the 438 and 451 structure on leased public land, structure on leased public land, urban areas and
Yep.
rural areas.
Oh, and those are going to the 3A, but they were not set up as state assessed. Or maybe
Okay.
one time they were and state got rid of them and brought them back. I don't know. But when we were talking with Jesse at State Assessed, they want all of their things that say structure on leased lands to go to K10D4. And before this, we were sending nothing to K10D4. So
Okay.
you now have your K10D4, and this is what it is.
Okay.
Because they were 230s.
Right. A lot of people were doing 230s, which is a K10D2. And then I think some people were doing, these fourth year,
Mhm.
13, 451. But those were not going to the K10D4 state assessed. So that's why we made this new one. So no, you no longer have to designate. If you have a state assessed structure on these lands, this is what it should be.
Okay. So
fourth-
Go ahead.
no, so I was just saying, so the 438 and 451, when will we use that then?
That's a good question.
Like, do we need to have those codes anymore?
Well, once we have everyone switch over, we could go out there and see if anyone's using that 438 and 451. And if we see that no one's using the 438 and the 451, we could certainly
Retire
talk
that
about
as well.
retiring those codes. I mean, once you guys make
Mhm.
all these changes, maybe it's worth us going into every county and running an assessment summary and figuring out if there's some of these codes that nobody's using and sending out a poll to see if you guys think we can get rid of them.
Right. Because the yellow you have highlighted as pays state tax. And I think that's where it's confused us sometimes because it's like, yes, it pays state tax, but then we're also looking at state assessed.
Right.
So do we really need to have that either in yellow, or do we need to have those if we're not using them?
Right. So, but there are things like this 3A doesn't pay state tax, but most 3As do pay state tax. But yeah, when you're talking state assessed, the pay state tax, I think, is more there for the auditors who have people contacting them saying, why am I paying state tax? Well, because you're a 431
Okay.
and subject to state tax, where you guys, if you're wondering state assessed, you're looking at these, is it highlighted blue? And I think we didn't always have this in previous years in our assessment codes book list. This wasn't always at the bottom of every page that had it. So then you're like, well, I mean, what does this mean? I don't know. You'd have to dig for it. We did try to, but so that it's always there and available as a reference for you.
Okay.
But yeah, I will make a note to, like once we've done our load onto every county and we know you've all kind of doctored your codes, to go in and see if there are assessment codes, that could be other assessment codes that could be retired. And do a poll, to make sure nobody is like, no, please don't get rid of my favorite assessment code. I'll use it next year. Okay, so we had somebody who messaged in the chat that the 454s and the 428s should be treated like 421s. And yes, that's correct. 421, 428, and 454 are all always countywide, according to the state. Those they want always countywide, so they should all always be put into the transmission distribution lines. Our last question for you guys today is this assessor yearly sequences document we sent out earlier this month. It just lists the sequences we send out every year and the approximate timing that we would send them out. If there's something that you would like to see added, let us know. If there's something that you would like to see moved, let us know. One of the things that we moved before sending this out was that this transfer CAMA land calc used to be sent out with the Create New Year, which used to be sent out in like July. Well, now we're sending this Create New Year out in April, and we split out the transfer CAMA land calc, which you all know is already prepped because we accidentally sent it out last week. However, we had a lot of people digging for it in December because that's when they were using it, or January because that's when they were using it, and they couldn't find it because we'd sent it out, back in July. We have this penciled in to send out in December. If someone would like it sent out before then, because you start running this before then, let us know and we'll move that date. Happy to send it out a little earlier, just trying to get it out like when people are using it. Okay. Otherwise, I think that's all she wrote. Unless somebody has questions, we're good to go. We sent out a poll asking you for best dates in August. August gets between all of our schedules here and the old number one's availability. There are not that many dates left, and we want to nail one down yet this week. So if you would like to give feedback on the date that works best for you and you haven't yet, please hop on there and let us know, and we will send you by the end of the week the date that we have picked. Oh, what's the update timeline and getting the tax system to web-based? So right now, anyone who wants to can get the new report generator. The new report generator is not like the old report generator. Oh, I was gonna, not worth doing that. It is very user-friendly. I just walked one of the counties that has it, and somebody new there through making a report. And they were really impressed by how quick it was to learn, how easily it was. It makes our system a lot more, like it makes it a lot easier for you to pull data out of the system. And so that aspect of the new rewrite is available now. And we are working on getting the backside set up for counties that have gotten them. I think we've got like 5 or 6 counties. We'd like to get you all on it yet this year. Danny Tuckett, we love it. Yep, Danny's becoming a report generator guru. If you have questions, call Danny. No, just kidding. I would never do that to you, Danny. Who do we contact if we want the updates? Send an email to any of us on the tax team, and we've got kind of a common list that we go and we update with, who asked for what when. So you can send it to CPT Tax or any of us in the room. The next thing that's going out is Campbell Land Calc.
which we are testing in-house. Hoping that a county can see it by the end of summer, that it won't be the complete package, but it will be maintenances and listings and that type of thing. It might be almost a complete CAMA package. Land Calc won't be quite there. And it isn't that we're not working on the assessors module. We are working on it. I just can't promise that will be in testing by the end of summer. It won't be. It'll be later this year, for sure. And along with that, it isn't that our auditors options, maybe you don't care about the auditors. No, I'm just kidding. It isn't that the auditor treasurer's options aren't being worked on, because there is a lot of overlay. Like, we have moved options onto your custom and extra menus that were actually written for the auditor treasurers. So there's overlap there as well. Yeah, we're working on it.
And building the Campbell Land Calc, then you're having to work on the integration with tax. So
Yes,
it's building the tax as well. By the time you get Campbell Land Calc ready, that's getting the tax, pretty, doing a lot of work in tax. And then when you start to work on the assessors, you're doing a lot of work on the auditors module, because there's a lot of overlap there. So hopefully very soon. If there's nothing else, that's it for us. We will see you live in August,
sometime in August.
and look forward to it. Have a good day, folks.
Thank you.
Welcome. Oh, I should stop my recording.